I'm having my one.
Welcome to the I'm Having My One podcast, the board game podcast where everyone gets their one. And despite a knuckleheaded comment to the contrary, we do think it's okay to express a view on a board game, even if you're not an expert at it. In fact, that's mostly what you're going to hear. Views on board games from people who are fairly average at playing them. My name is Tom, and sharing those opinions with me today are Seb,
Hello.
Reese,
Oh,
and a very scratchy sounding Paul.
Hello.
There you go. Welcome, guys. Thank you very much. Now, listener, if we time it right, you could and probably should be listening to this while you're at the UK Games Expo, or maybe you're en route, whatever the case, whether you're an old listener or new, we welcome you to our board game ramble. And this episode, as well as talking about the game we most recently played, as we usually do, which is Eclipse Second Dawn for the Galaxy, we'll also be talking about the UK Games Expo 2025, what we're looking forward to, what demo games we're hunting down, and anything else we're going to be getting involved in. All that to look forward to in the second half of this episode. But before we get into our review of Eclipse, assuming that we may have some brand new listeners today, I thought it might be useful to just take a second to tell you what we're all about. We are a podcast and fledgling YouTube channel that discusses board games, tabletop games, and all that encompasses. We're a pretty broad church in what we like to talk about, from small box games, party games, and the like, to in-depth, chunky 3 to 12 hour heavy strategy and war games. We're not in any way kind of pretending to be experts about this. We are simply four friends sharing our views and experiences of board games. To finish this very long intro, let me explain also why we're called I'm Having My One. This is a phrase that we use in all of our gaming to signify that we need to have a do-over, or a retro, a non-game breaking adjustment to our last go. The reason why we called our podcast this is because this is how we like to play our games, encouraging others to have a good time and get the most out of that experience rather than being so focused on winning and everything else that goes with that at the expense of others, which is what we want to share with you, our listeners and viewers. Okay, monologue mode off. Let's talk Eclipse. So Eclipse Second Dawn for the Galaxy came in what felt like the sunset of our own galaxy. COVID times in 2020. It's is that too bleak? I don't know. Well, maybe that's what you've got now, Paul. This is a game from a designer that I'm too pathetic to try and pronounce, and a publisher, Lautapelit. Yes, that's why I didn't bother. Who are from Finland, and these guys. It's worth just having a look at their back catalogue on BGG when you get a second, because it's incredibly eclectic what they've done. One of the ones that we know is Flamme Rouge very well, but to do even just that to Eclipse seems a pretty broad range. Anyway. This is a true 4X of a game, Eclipse. I'm talking about now, of course. These 4X games, as they're known in the game hobby, are those that encompassing four aspects of things that do not start with the letter X: explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate. As you explore the galaxy, expand your empire, exploit resources, and attempt, and often fail, as we found, to exterminate both the NPCs and other players. It is often, and incorrectly, in my opinion, compared to that giant of the hobby, Twilight Imperium. But this game certainly, I think, has more of a Euro engine builder kind of feel to it. So I think that's probably a good place to start with that big question. What do we make of that comparison between Twilight Imperium and this game, Eclipse Second Dawn for the Galaxy?
it's got spaceships, isn't it? I think
Set in
that's
space.
it's got different factions, I guess, but that's probably where the similarities kind of stop, I think. I mean, it's 2 hours. It's a much, much shorter game. Something you can do comfortably in an evening, even if you're starting late. So yeah, very, very different.
they've got quite a different feel, I think, to what they're trying to do. I think that's probably it, is that I don't like it as a comparison because I don't think it really does either game justice, because I think Eclipse are trying to do more of, as I said, like a Euro style. If you think of how you are managing your faction board, one of the things that you're doing there, right, is you have these action discs essentially that you have to, with the economy in the game, pay for. So, as in, the more actions you take, the more you have to pay at the end of the turn. But as you gradually expand what you do, take over more places, get more resources, we'll talk more about, I'm sure, and invest in technology, another thing that we'll talk about, you you have the opportunity to do more, right? And that is something I do like about this game. I do like an engine builder, as I've talked about on recent episodes. That's a very cool thing, I think, in a controlling mechanism. Those discs impacting what you can do, and as I say, kind of being able to evolve through the game to do more.
I think the designers of Eclipse have been probably, I would say, inspired by what Twilight Imperium did at Fantasy Flight, in that they've borrowed some of the aspects of the way you play, but they've just changed it into, like, Japanese making a car. Like, they've just turned it into a euro from this massive
Does that mean a bit
behemoth of a game.
boring? Does that mean a bit boring, Sim?
Well, no, it's streamlined. It's not 12 hours, is it? It's smooth and sleek. It's
Like all Japanese cars.
yeah, yeah. I mean, maybe it's a terrible
No,
comparison,
no, I
but
like it. Keep going.
um, yeah, I think that they have borrowed some of the things, the way you play. Like, you way in Twilight you use strategy tokens. In Eclipse you're placing your are they influence tokens, and
Yeah,
can't remember
discs,
what they're
discs or
called,
something,
discs.
whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and you're borrowing things from essentially what is your economy of moves.
Mm,
Um, in TI, it's your strategy and tactical tokens. In this, it's your influence tokens. There's a crossover.
mm,
It's not the same. I think they've just taken some of those ideas and just condensed it and put it into a Euro format. But it's still good. I love the science fiction element of them both. But this is still they're very different games. But I
Mm.
think they have borrowed some of it, and I think they've taken some inspiration from them. But they're still very different.
I think the biggest difference, which is my favorite bit about this game, is being able to upgrade your
mhm.
ships and
Yeah,
straps and, massive cannons and, huge power cells and, all these other things that you can kind of do. And every game is different because you've got these technology tiles that kind of come out randomly, right? So you're never going to kind of have the same build twice, and unless you play it an awful lot, I suppose. But it's definitely my favorite bit of the game is just that going and getting your upgrades and then putting them onto your ship. Yeah, it's brilliant.
It really reminds me of an old platform game on PC called Zatax. I don't know if anyone remembers this.
No.
Yeah,
no.
spaceship going through the galaxy in on a platform format, and you get certain stages, and you get massive rockets. So you start off with this tiny weeny pea ship, and then it just turns into this absolute monster with rockets and ammo flying off all over the shop. And that's what I visualize when I've souped up my interceptors, which then get absolutely annihilated by Tom.
Yeah. More on that later.
Um, Going back to your car analogy, as someone that owned a Nissan Sunny estate, I'd like to say not all Japanese cars are sleek and elegant.
Oh
And,
yeah.
I think the explore element from this 4X can sometimes be a bit clunky because you can you can get you can get stuck. You know, if you don't draw some good tiles and the person next to you is pulling out some great tiles, then suddenly, you're really on the back foot. Um,
Right, this really happened to you, Reese, at the beginning of the game. I think it balanced out later for you, right? But early on, you were doing a huge amount of exploring and not really getting much.
I didn't get anything. It was so depressing. I was getting, one resource planet, and you guys were seemingly, from my side of the fence at least, it seemed like every explore tile you were doing, you were all getting like three resource planets and ancients and all the good stuff that you want to be finding when you're flipping those tiles over. I think to be honest, the turning point in that game, and I guess it has a mechanic that means there are ways of kind of turning it around. I think did I come second
yes,
at the end? I managed to get. And I spent all of my science points on it. I managed to get the advanced. It was a is it a black market tech, the ones that are at the bottom of the tray, or
Something like
rare
that, or
tech?
rare tech, yeah.
Rare upgrades or something like that.
Yeah, I managed to get one that allowed me to use all of the advanced mining, advanced
Yes, right. Yeah.
everything, and so it meant that I could very quickly then start getting down loads of the resource cubes, which I
Mm.
was struggling with at the beginning. So my engine was kind of stalling at the beginning. Then I
Paul,
managed to get that.
sorry, is that Paul, is that the tech that you thought you had for the entire game?
yeah, yeah. It was, although coming a big third, I don't think it really made a huge amount of difference to the overall.
Apart from you were absolutely killing it, and it's fair to say we got a couple of things. Well, I say we, Paul got a couple of things wrong,
Yeah,
thinking that he could just have that same tech and just was getting loads of resource and just fairly dominating in terms of the number of ships and stuff you were doing across the board until we realised about turn six.
yeah. However, what I would like to say is sometimes when someone teaches the game, maybe not all of the rules are as clear. I haven't played it for a couple of years, so I'm just putting it out there.
What did we say on that teaching tips for teaching board games a few episodes ago? Just watch the video, watch the damn video.
Should have watched the video. I did watch the video. That's even worse, isn't it?
Yeah. I do think that is a really good bit of this game, though. So, because you have these three wheels, and one's for the gold, one's for the tech, and one's for your production resources. And you gradually take the cubes off and put them onto the board as you are taking planets or putting the orbitals, which is another way of getting more stuff out, more resources. It's an actual piece that you put on the board. You gradually then reveal your new values for those techs, which I do quite like. It's a very simple method of doing it. Is that a little bit like Scythe or something, I suppose, is that you take the cubes off and you put them somewhere else, and that reveals more stuff that you've got. Simple thing, but I do quite like it in the way in which that resource exploiting resources bit of this game works. So the exploring the galaxy bit we've spoken about, maybe just to cap that off, it is something that I've often wondered whether the game should draft the galaxy. Is that it massively takes off that exploring element of this game.
Yeah.
But I've had games like you had, Reese, and not been smart enough to think of a solution or have a solution presented as you were
Mm.
describing.
Yeah.
And you just feel like, oh man, I've just got an hour into this game and I've got nothing, and everybody else has seemingly got loads, and then you're scrabbling to be able to do anything in the game because you fall behind in those resources. And if the orbital tech, which as I was saying, sort of gives you the opportunity to catch up a little bit, if that doesn't come out, then you can be really stuck. And I think that is a negative. Do you think would it would you lose too much from the game if you drafted the Galaxy? So, what I mean by that is where you have a set of the cards for the galaxy, the hexes, and you place them out, right? You build out the galaxy, you share it out approximately evenly the number, and then you just place those out so you can put one next to one of your opponents if it's got none, and if it's got loads of resources, you can put it next to yours, and vice versa. Do you think that takes too much away from the game?
I think it
Yeah.
does, yeah, because this is supposed to be a 4X game,
And dropped an X right there.
and yeah, and then because I think that's sometimes the argument that TI isn't genuinely a 4X game
Yeah.
because it doesn't have that exploration.
Yeah.
See Prophecy of Kings uh, links in episode whatever it was, but
Yeah. Sort of fixes it, right? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
um, and and yeah, I think it's a slightly sort of broken element of the game, and yes, you could fix it by just laying out a galaxy,
Mm.
but then I think it then really takes away from how you would explore, because if you want to move from hex to hex, you can't always do that because you have to get through like the warp tiles,
Yeah.
which is on the hex just kind of like a little semicircle, so it needs to link up with the semicircle on the next hex to form a full circle,
Yeah.
two semicircle. Mhm.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Um, yeah, good. If I'm not
With you so far.
stretching your maths brains too much tonight.
Oof.
Um, and so even if you drafted it, how then do you lay out those tiles? Because sometimes you want to tactically turn it either so that your opponent can't get into your area easily,
Mm.
or at reverse that there is that link either for linking and trade, or so you can just go and punch them,
Mm.
which is more likely, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Fair
think
enough.
it is a bit of a negative. But if if you had that kind of thing in TI, it would be a much bigger negative because, you know, you wouldn't want to play a 8 hour game with a bad start, knowing that you're never going to be able to improve on it.
Yep.
Whereas this being, a 2 hour game, you can kind of grin and bear it and try and find a way. And there are ways, right? You might not be lucky enough to get the orbital tech or the advanced techs to let you kind of put those resource cubes down on the advanced locations. But I think you could still have fun though. And
I think you could.
it's not like
Yeah.
half a day invested in it.
No.
Most games you can, card games you can be dealt a bad hand, right? It just, it's just happens sometimes. But I think there's a good enough game here that on the odd occasion that does happen, and it was ridiculous the game that we played.
You're very unlucky. Yeah.
It was just practically every tile I was turning over.
Mm.
But you've also always got the option of kind of carry on exploring.
Yeah.
You can explore, within reason, as much as you like, as long as there are tiles left in the exploration deck, right? So
Yeah.
you could keep exploring and
So yes
um
and no, in that your ability to explore, and we'll come on to like something I wanted to talk to guys about in the way that I play this, but you are limited in your abilities to explore by those action discs or influence discs, whatever we're calling them, right? Is that the more of those that you have out on the board, the more you need to pay at the end of every turn to cover your expenses effectively, right? And if the areas that you're exploring, I understand you don't need to take those, but you sort of do to be able to keep progress, to keep going, and to sort of maintain that kind of unity of your empire, your factions holdings, right? And if you're exploring areas that don't have the resources that you need to be able to continue to put more and more and more discs out, then you can get in a really tight spot quite quickly. And also, it's a points thing, right? Is that if you actually look at the mechanics, how you win the game, there are loads of different ways of doing it. But one of those is about the areas of the map that you draw, and generally speaking, those that have higher resource counts on them are worth more points, I seem to recall. So I think there are some limiting factors. I think you're right. I think it's something that most of the time it'd be fine. It's just every now and again you'll have an unlucky time.
Well,
Yeah.
I had the almost the opposite where I kept on turning over tiles where I had the ancients on them, which you kind of want a smattering of that on your exploration because they always have some goodies with them and there'll be some decent planets,
And points and
but
stuff, right?
and points. But I just kept on turning them over, and I I hadn't developed further enough in my game to be able to exploit the ancients by destroying them and getting their upgraded tech. So I got stymied by having too good at tiles by me, and I think actually I probably did play quite a bad game in that I tried to attack them too early, and then that I thought that I had a couple of upgrades. I'll risk it because it does pay off if you manage to get an advantage early on in the game.
Oh yeah.
Uh, and it just didn't work for me, and so I just completely flatlined after that, basically.
Well, it's a good opportunity to bring sort of two things together. Your point, Reese, before on the tech tray, which I agree is one of my favorite things, and the way in which you get the tech and you can build out your ships and upgrade them is great. But that can be really varied, is your point. And in our game, we actually didn't have a lot of weapons come out. And one of the things that you
Didn't.
can do is
Yeah.
have these upgraded weapons, which then meant, Seb, that in your example of the different guardians and ancients and stuff you had to fight, is that you didn't have the firepower to be able to defeat these guys, right? And so rolling and rolling, rolling, and sort of nothing happening. Now, what do you think about the combat generally in our game, maybe specifically, but generally how the combat works in the game?
It's okay. It's pretty straightforward.
It's
You
just
know,
it colored dice ultimately, right? And then
yeah.
hits that might have upgrades.
Yeah.
It can kind of drag on a bit if you're not getting the hits you need. If you have some bad roll, I mean, Seb, you had some awful on top of everything else. Like the dice weren't with you.
Yeah, it
But
was quite
sometimes
funny.
the battles can go on a bit. And I think
Yeah.
my other thing with this game, especially when I first played it many, many years ago, is like, well, we're in space and we can shoot stuff. But realistically, it's only the last couple of turns
It is really,
you're really in any position to, you
certainly
know,
to fight other factions anyway.
yeah. It
Mm.
feels like actually you spend most of the game just kind of pottering about until, the very end where it's like, and then there's loads going on.
And I have
There's
never ever had a game that isn't like that of this. And I must have played this game 10 times now.
it's very much a crescendo ending, isn't it? It's like
Mm.
a slow build, and then all of a sudden,
Which is okay. I think that's fine. Uh, but it's kind of make or break, right? Is that timing your moment and getting the right dice in that last turn. You can get so many points for defeating, and in a big battle, you get points per ships you destroy, right? And you can get so many points if you do well with that, and if you capture the right territories as well, that's the game. I think a lot of the time it's not that you can survive that, and I think that's probably okay. I don't know how I feel about that. I think it's okay that, but I don't know. I don't know. It's a bit of a don't love it. I think for me, I tried. I mentioned to you guys when we were playing. I think I said it on a previous pod. When I have played it, I don't know, some point in the last 6 months, I've tried going early on that and getting going into the center of the galaxy, which has loads of points and loads of resources on turn 7 or turn 6 of 8. and it just didn't work. I defeated what was in the center, but it just took so much out of me, my resources and everything to be able to do that, that I then was just, it was open season against my faction in the middle and also everything that I'd got left on the board. And I think part of that relates to the movement, right? The movement is so slow in this game. You
Yeah.
can generally speaking only move two ships for each move action that you take. And unless you've upgraded your your ship's engines, that's generally just to the adjacent territory. And again, right, good players of this may go, well, what do you mean you didn't upgrade your engines? Well, sure, but that's the choice, and you need to make the choices. Do you upgrade your engines? Do you upgrade your weapons? Do you do your shields? All cool, interesting choices, which I think make this game a great one to play. But I always find it a bit sucky that like everything moves one unless you upgrade it. And moving them is only two. It's not like other games where it's everything in this territory into the adjacent. You you can take. I remember I was trying to move. Said we had a funny moment at the end of the game, right, where we were fighting over sort of nothing. This last territory where I thought I'll grab a few points near the end. Seb won't care, but no, you did because of the sort of game you'd had. You just wanted to be annoying, and so just
Yeah.
threw in loads of ships to fight me on it. Um,
I think I actually gifted you the game by doing that
well,
because you got
potentially,
points for
I got
destroying me.
points for doing it for sure. So I should say thank you, shouldn't I? But it took me like three actions. So your discs, maybe this needs a bit of context, is your discs that you can play. Your some like most turns you'll play five or later in the game, five, six discs per round, I think is probably fair to say overall, something around there.
Something like that.
And I'd
Yeah.
taken three of those just to move. I think I had five. Okay, I could move six in, I suppose, but uh, four, five, six ships, however many it was, to get them in there. And it just, that just takes forever. It just takes so long.
Sorry, Paul and I had exactly the same thing. Right by Mechatol Flex or whatever it's called in this game. Um,
Great, great,
uh,
great game.
he had the center galaxy or the center planet, and I just wanted a battle because I hadn't fought anyone yet. So I'm like, I'm just going to pile in. It's the last round. But they've got the pinning ship mechanism as well, which makes moving even harder, as if it isn't hard enough already. So yeah, trying to get my ships over to Mechatol uh, was thwarted by the fact that he moved a few into my territory, which pinned ships, and then I had to build some more ships, and then I had to move them as well, and it was just, yeah, it's slow. It's you can't. It's very difficult to do a kind of dash across the galaxy and punch someone in the face on the other side of the map.
You
Right.
can't
In
surprise
this,
anyone, can you?
unless you've got
Because
wormhole tech, because I guess you could. But yeah, it would be. I think a little tweak to that rule would be a really nice addition. Maybe if like dreadnoughts could take two ships with them when they moved. It
Right.
doesn't need to be the whole sector that moves. That might be a bit overpowered. But yeah, a little tweak to that because those discs, those influence tokens that you have are so precious because you have to use one for every action you want to take.
Mm.
And it's that lovely, as most good Euro games have, it's that lovely balancing act of just like, right, what is the optimum thing for me to do at this point in time with this little plastic round
And
piece?
maybe that's the thing. It's just a more strategic game, right? That you have to be a bit more thoughtful about what you're doing with it. That all the way through this conversation, I've been saying to myself, "Don't compare it to TI. Don't compare it to TI." In all of your examples, but I'm going to. Is that with TI? If you lose a big battle, there's time. You just rebuild. You have resources to
Mhm.
rebuild, and you have another go, and that's fine. there just isn't the opportunity, the time, the resources to do that kind of thing here. So it's much more, I'm going to move my pieces there, which stops that person doing anything, that then allows me to take this and I'm defending that. So next turn I can do this. And as you say, with your resources, it's the same sort of your action discs. It's the same sort of thing, right? Which I don't know. I feel like I should like it more. I think there's just too much. There's too much here I find a bit annoying. I think that's it. Is it just? It's a bit. Oh, okay, nearly. Oh no! Oh no! I can't. No, I can't quite do it. It's. I don't know. I'm just.
There are a lot of even when you're building out your ship and you buy a nice gun for it, and then you realize, I haven't got enough power on my ship to install it, so now I need to do
Yeah.
another research. And yeah, there are definitely moments like that. Um,
And that counters this idea of it being quite quick. Is that this being a 2 hour game? Is there are lots of. It's difficult for it to be that, is what I'm trying to say. I think while you are also trying to have that strategic game where you're taking the time and to decide on the text and how you upgrade your ships that allow you to do the strategy. And sure, if you are playing this all the time, you probably do understand all those things, but we're not those sort of gamers, and I don't think a lot of people are those sort of gamers. It's the you probably play this a few times a year, maybe at most.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we've played this quite a lot. And when I've played it in quick succession, you know, three three times in a month maybe.
Mm.
By the third time, I'm like, yeah, I'm, the thrill of upgrading my ship has kind of dissipated, and I want to play something else. Um, so yeah, yeah, definitely. I think it's a great game for those odd occasions, but it's definitely not something I could see myself playing on a regular basis.
Which is,
Um,
yeah, it's just it does. But it's not an event game. It's not a Twilight. It's not a Nemesis. It's not
no,
any of those sorts of games in that kind of way, I think. The this idea about the exploring again and sort of expanding your empire, sorry, as you put those discs out. Is it what were you guys doing when we were playing it? Because the mechanic in the game is you explore with an action, which shows a new territory that it gives you. And then you have the option to do the expanding bit, which is take one of your influence discs and say, yeah, yoink, that is mine. And then you can also potentially grab some resources from it as well. Were you guys doing that every single time where you had the option, or were you kind of reviewing like what was there and going, actually, do you know what? This time I'm not, because every single time I had one of those, whether it was a good territory or not, I just went, yeah, put the influence disc in, so it sort of allows me to keep on going.
yeah, I did that. Even with the bad tiles I was getting, I was putting the influence disc down, and then there's that final action, I forget its name, where you can kind of reshuffle your influence discs or take.
Influence, I think it is.
Okay, it's called the influence action. Makes sense. Um, so I used that, once I had managed to find better territories, I kind of used that. But like you're saying, you kind of anything, even if it's just a one planet with you know, a, a currency or what are they called? The yellow
Money.
mining science and
Yeah, it's just the gold
economy.
or economy
Is
or
it
whatever. Yeah,
economy?
Wealth, perhaps.
Yeah. But even if it's just one of those, you're still better off at the start of the game taking it. So you've got a bit of extra money, which means you might be able to do that one more action
I
before,
think so.
the round resets.
Mm.
So yeah, I think you would mostly always do that. That's my thought. Unless it was really bad and you were having a great run of some really good planets, I suppose.
Seb, Paul, any thoughts on that?
I there as I referenced back to what I said earlier, I was playing a terrible game, so I did end up missing out planet or two just because my my economy was functioning so poorly that I was worried that I was not going to have enough money to be able to finance my turn, and
Mm,
then I didn't want to have to sell stuff off
mm,
because of that. So I was concerned about using too many influence tokens, which I didn't think were worth it because as you go up through the spending your influence, it costs more in money to be able to do it. So initially, I think like the first few, it's like, yeah, it only goes up by one
yeah.
money each time, and then you get further along, and then it jumps up, and it might cost instead of costing 5, it now costs 8, and then it's 11, 15. Like it jumps up in
Oh,
quite considerably as you start taking those bigger turns.
Mm.
And my economy was functioning so poorly, my fault, and partially just not being able to exploit what was around me. Um, that I didn't take those opportunities because I thought it cost too much.
I think you're, yeah, yes, I think you're being a bit harsh to yourself on the way in which you played. I think you just, as you said yourself earlier, you just got stuck with those ancients being in your way. Is that your early attempt to try and knock them on the head that could have absolutely gone your way, but for some bad dice rolls, then kind of seemed to throw your game massively, right? So
Yeah,
from
it
my
stalled
perspective,
it.
playing
Yeah.
opposite you, it didn't seem like you were making bad decisions on what you were doing in the game. It's just that you just got unlucky with that combat, and then it was took turns to recover from it. Which,
Hmm.
again, is that a problem in the game?
Yeah, it felt this was the first time it felt like it's the first time I played it where I felt like that was a problem.
Mm,
Because I've not had a game before where I've gotten so stuck. Um, so yeah, it did feel slightly problematic, but then I
mm,
thought, well, I've played this a dozen times. It's the first time this has happened, so actually, it's not like it's happening every time I play. And you got to always expect that at some point you're going to have a bad game of any game,
any game,
and
absolutely.
it's not your fault. It's just what the cards you've been dealt, the dice you've rolled, everything goes wrong.
Yeah.
And
So
that, it's just I
philosophical,
think it was
sir.
just one of those games, really.
Yeah, it happens to us all. Some of us more than others. So, final question before we go on to scores for this one, which maybe this is an unfair question because I just don't know that we've played it enough recently. We have as a group played it quite a bit, but it has been a little while since we played it and before this session. Is the kind of the flavor of it, I guess, is that I'm going to do that thing that I keep promising not to do to compare it to Twilight. But one of the things that you have in Twilight is this incredible, which comes in this huge box, and you have even in the base game 14 factions, something like that, and you can add more and more and more and more and more. And those factions, some more than others, do feel different. So if you're thinking about Eclipse, and so the way in which you play is certainly very different. If you think about Eclipse and the differences in what we could all see each other were doing and the different kind of flavor of what we're doing, the variety of play, I don't think any of us chose the basic Terran human faction, right? We're all playing as alien factions. Do you guys feel that it has enough variety, enough flavor in it, or could it be accused of being a bit generic sci-fi?
I
Uh,
think for the type of game it is, there are some slight differences, but actually they're minor. I mean, some factions are going to get bonus points at the end of the game. I felt your faction was almost slightly overpowered in how quickly you could research tech
yeah, it was devastating. That was.
and fill up that tech board. Yeah,
Yeah,
and the rest
I
of
got a
us
lot of points for that.
and the rest of us were just kind of plodding along. The only real benefit, like for example, my faction had is I could move one extra ship, which is okay, but I don't think they're necessarily that well balanced.
Mm. I mean, Seb had an interesting one. Yeah, I mean, most of the factions, my understanding, I've not played them all, but most of them just have tweaks to those base actions. I could build 3 ships instead of two, for instance, that other factions could build, and the cost of building was a little bit lower for me than other factions. But Seb, you had an interesting one that
Yeah,
had its own little mini game going on on the
yeah.
side.
I picked mine at a bit of a glance because I just saw, oh, my race gets an extra influence tile. What I didn't read was the small print in that I had to unlock. So for each time I researched a tech, I could also build a shrine, and a shrine was worth a victory point. And I had 3 tracks where if I unlocked a certain track, then and that was 3 different shrines I had to unlock, and that would cost me a certain amount of resources for each one, and then I would get the ability to have an extra influence tile. What in my head, I just thought, oh, great, I've got an extra influence tile straight off. No, that was not the case. And, so I really had to work for that, and I never managed to get it because I had to expend resources to be able to get those shrines. Um, but I needed to build ships, I needed to research, I needed to upgrade, and I just couldn't afford to do them all.
Mm,
So I ended up just not doing much of the shrine stuff to be able to get those unlocks at the end of those paths of the shrines,
And
and
I think
it
your
just yeah, it just felt a
factions,
bit useless.
and I think it's worth saying your faction, I think, is one of the expansions, isn't it? I don't think they're in the base game.
No. And I think this is perhaps where we need to explore it some more, is that there are, I think, a whole load of expansions
Loads.
that bring loads more factions into it, and perhaps they do more of those sorts of things. I know mine was one of the base game factions that you can get, and I think you guys are exactly right. And my thoughts exactly that the factions that we've mostly encountered don't really feel like they change your play style in any kind of major way. It's not kind of representative of what thematic of that faction is meant to be. They're not super attacking, or they're not, more on the um, kind of building up or exploring or any of that kind of side. It's just your faction will be able to do things slightly better than others and do other things slightly worse. But with yours, yeah, Seb, it did, and that was maybe the door that we need to open some more and look at, is the extra pieces and the different sort of play style that maybe does then lead into that some more. Okay, let's go to some scores. Seb, I'm going to start with you. This was a game that I think you were very keen for us to play, and nominated it, I think, for us to give it a go. You didn't have your best game before we were playing this time round. It was a game that you were kind of searching around for all over the place to try and get hold of it. What's your opinion now, and what's your score for
Well,
Eclipse?
my immediate feeling after the game was, yeah, I felt a bit down for like absolutely flopping. Um, but in all the other games I've ever played of this, I've really enjoyed, and I've enjoyed the development of your race through the galaxy. I don't actually think it's a game I've ever won, but I've enjoyed the journey that you take through it. But this was the first time I've gotten completely stuck and just wasn't able to compete really. And that has taken a little bit of the sheen off of off of the game for me. I probably would have given it an 8 before, but I'm probably going to say it's more of a 7 to 7.5, something like that. Let's go 7.25.
7.2.
We love the 0.25, 0.75s,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's not quite, yeah. Yeah, I just yeah, it tasted a little bit sour at the end of that because like when I was just throwing the ships in with you at the end, I was like, I just want something to happen. I
Yeah,
want to destroy a ship, and I
yeah.
managed to do that. But the rest of the
Or you're
time, I was just getting
annihilated here.
completely blown out of the water.
I've had
before I.
exactly the same game to you, and I got to a point where I just couldn't get any tech. I couldn't do anything. So I was like, right, I'm just going to build as many mini ships as I can. And I had as many as you could put on the board and send them all in against Neil on that occasion. And I think I took out one and he blasted all of them. But, kamikaze pilot working. Okay, thanks, Seb. Paul, what's your rating for Eclipse?
Okay, well, Tom's aware of this, but I actually don't like this game very much. Um, for the reasons of I think exploration is very hard. The tech tree's nice, but if you don't pull the tiles you want, then you can kind of even get a bit stuck with that. And finally, if I'm in space with all of my spaceships, I want to spend a lot of my time in space shooting things. They've got guns, they should be used. Um, so yeah, it's one right from the start. I looked on it with joy and wonder when it was first introduced to us, and we played it a lot. And I don't think I've ever had a game where I really thought, "Oh wow, that was great! I can't wait to play it again." And so for that reason, I'm going to give it a 6.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, six is still it's an okay rating basically. It's the six,
It's
right?
all right, and like if you guys want to play
It's
it
all right. All right. All
slightly Christopher Walken for a minute,
right. Ow.
um, it's okay.
Now,
I like the game, but I think there are better
watch.
things I'd rather play.
Wow, I didn't expect that to continue. Very good. Good. Fair enough. Good. All right. So six from Paul. Thank you.
Oh,
Reese, where are you with this?
um, I'm 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 going to higher than both Paul and Seb. I think this is a lot of game for a small amount of time. Um, I really like the tech element. I like the exploring element. Um, I think it's a good one. I think it's a good one. And if somebody was like came over and said, I want to play a not too long game that's just like space adventure, bit of battling, bit of exploring. I think this is one of the better ones that kind of ticks those boxes. So I put it about 7.8 is where I'm gonna leave it. If you haven't played it, this is a great game to try. And I love to play it maybe twice a year. But it's not something I'd play
I'd love to play
all
it once a
all the
decade.
time, once a
Can I
decade.
just say, I think if someone does want to play a game that is in space and you can shoot things and there is exploration, I think Star Wars Outer Rim ticks the boxes a lot better.
It's an interesting comparison, sure.
It doesn't have the galaxy exploration, but it has the hunting for the bounties exploration,
Yeah,
and you get to
it's
kill
yeah,
things quite quickly.
It does have a bit more excitement, I think, as written, doesn't it?
yeah.
There's more things happening each turn, which are more engaging, I think.
Hmm.
Whereas Eclipse takes a little while to get into gear.
Yeah,
Well, let's come back to Outer Rim another time. That's a very interesting comparison. I hadn't thought about that.
it's on the list.
It's on the list. It's on the games list to write more space to come. All right. Thank you, Reese. I think I'm in the same sort of place as you guys. I find the combat a bit slow in this game. Uh, I think because you don't have a lot of combat, but your abilities are changing all the way through the game. I found myself constantly, okay, what have I got for this one in this fight? It's this and this and this, and that's not complicated, but it just led it to being a little bit slow. It's not a very simple roller six kind of thing. Um, and the exploration, as you guys mentioned, I have found frustrating. I think the tech is cool. I like doing that. There's bits of the engine building, and it's certainly not too difficult to teach. That's it's not a very complicated game. I think it is kind of, take your token, put it there, explain how to do that. You've done it a couple of times, you know what you're doing. So that is there are fewer elements than other games that I won't mention in this genre. I just struggle to kind of feel it all hanging together. And I've had some very frustrating games with it, and I like bits of it, I just don't love it, and so that ends up being a seven for me. It's fine, it's good, I enjoy it, but I don't love it, and I'm not sure I would definitely recommend it to somebody. So those are our thoughts on Eclipse. We're a bit mixed on it, as you can tell, unfortunately. I think it will always suffer from that comparison to TI, which we've tried not very hard, or I haven't tried very hard to not compare it to.
Hmm.
I
And
mean,
but
it's
Did
worth
we mention
saying.
TI?
something called Twilight Imperium. I don't know if that's the same as a TI, Twilight Imperium and TI.
I didn't notice anyone saying anything
Right.
about
Just
TI
edit. If
during
I
that.
edit all that out, and
Yeah.
never happened.
That's it. Yeah,
I was
just
going to
beat
say
it.
it's worth saying on BGG it does get an 8.4. So I think within the wider community it is better loved.
Absolutely, it's very well thought of. I think sometimes though it's like the people rebelling against Twilight Imperium. Oh, I can't like Twilight Imperium. I'm going to like Eclipse. You're either a Twilight player or you're an Eclipse player, which is annoying by itself. You don't have to be that person. Like them both. It's fine. Um, but it's just I
But we
think
all like
that's.
Twilight Imperium and
But we
not
all like
Eclipse.
Twilight more. Yeah. Yes, but for good reasons, Seb. Don't undermine my points with sound logic and
Uh,
reasoning. God damn it.
Brilliant.
All the way through it, I think my problem was I kept thinking I want to play TI more. Just again and again, like, yeah, this is good, but I need to get TI day organized at some point. The game Eclipse is really not available really not available very much right now. Have a look. Maybe you're at the expo and there's some knocking around. Maybe it's in the bring and buy. You'll get lucky. It's been very, very, very out of stock this for a while. On Chaos Cards, this would be, if it were in stock, £107.95. So it's not a cheap game either. It is a very pricey game. So generally the advice would be just get yourself on those stock notification emails. We're not being totally Chaos Cards biased here. It just really isn't available anywhere as far as I could tell. So I think we're kind of just about on recommendation. Give it a go if you think that kind of thing sounds like it's for you. It does have its flaws. If you are interested to hear a bit more, we spoke to Steve, friend of the podcast and listener, last year in October, and he actually had it as one of his top 10 games, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. Sorry, Steve, if I'm making a mistake. And that's back in episode 61, so give that a listen if you want. All right, let's move on. This glorious episode is sponsored by the lovely people over at Chaos Cards. Now, these guys do an excellent job with their online orders, but if you're listening to this podcast at the expo, you can also find them at stand 302 in Hall 3. And I genuinely can tell you that even before they started to sponsor us in the 2 years we've been going to UKGE, Chaos Cards was always somewhere that we'd end up going because they just have some of the best pricing available for games in the combined halls. So get on down to stand 302 near Geek and Sun Game Tables and Pegasus Spiel to check them out. Right, UK Games Expo 2025. We are very excited about this. We went to our first expo in 2023 to the full 3 days at that point and soaked up every ounce of it, making me feel like I needed to lie down in a very silent and dark room for about a week afterwards to recover. Last year, due to an unfortunate planned wedding by one of our non-board gaming friends, we could only attend for the single day. But this year we are back. We will be there for the full 3 days, sporting our yellow slash black slash blue t-shirts, depending on the day you find us. To start us off on this, if you do spot us, please come and say hello. We will have a limited number of our traditional first player tokens to give you if we have any available left. And we'd love to just have a chat about your experience and what you've been up to at the expo. So come and find us. We'll be around. back to the build-up and excitement. What I thought we could do today is we'll build up our own hype and hopefully our listeners as well, and talk about all the things that we've seen that we're interested in, checking out, buying, playing, demoing, etc., etc., etc. So, Paul, what's on your list of things to see, do, buy this expo?
I think I don't have a massive to buy list. I don't think that will stop me though. Um, last year we only went for the day. I was like, I'm not buying anything, and then probably spent nearly £100. So
So easy though,
um,
isn't it? It's
it
just
is.
it's just a big bit of it is shopping and just seeing all that stuff together. It's just so difficult to resist.
But I think overall, um, although we spoke to them on an interview a couple of episodes ago, I'm actually looking forward to getting over to the Molinarius stand for two reasons. Reason number one is I'll be able to pick up my Kickstarter of Flippers.
Mhm.
And reason two is I'd like a game of Time Troopers.
Yes, Time Troopers does sound fantastic. There's a lot that Lee was talking about in that interview, right, where you could just see how excited he was by it. This is, which I love. It was just so obviously a huge passion of his, and he was so excited to have got on to doing this sort of game. And he clearly loves the family's games as well, but it's just a different sort of thing. I'm sure to be producing something that broad, that epic. So yeah, very much looking forward to that. And they are, he said, very close to our friends at Chaos Cards in Hall 3 as well, right?
I think so. And yeah, I mean, I've just finished the Legacy of You campaign, which is a solo campaign. Nearly finished the War Story campaign. So it doesn't leave me with a huge amount of solo play campaign type games.
Right.
I've got lots of games I will play solo, but I do like to have a campaign and a story to follow.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping with a little play test, this might be the one.
Yeah. 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 There's a lot that appeals to me, and we'll just have to work our way down there and see if we can get a demo. But do listener have a look out for them. They really nice people, really good attitude. Listen to our episode a couple back on that one when we spoke to Lee and Mike.
Yeah,
One from my side, which I think I actually saw really quickly last year, as it must have been a pre-production or prototype version, is one called Avalon: The Riven Veil, which is a new game from Shadowborn Games, who will be on stand 602 in Hall 3. And this is a Arthurian um, legend game, and it's one I've wanted to get something related to this for ages, and one of the reasons why I'm really excited about the Winter King when that comes out is that's Arthurian as well, I think, isn't it?
yeah,
Um, a game that seems like it's got a lot of, well, it's certainly presented fantastically, but a lot of things that I believe I will find very interesting. Not just the theme, but what you're what you're doing in the game will I don't know quite how to describe it, but you kind of work your way around this circular board and these different sections, and as I understand it, there's these kind of cards that you'll play as you go through. Anyway, I want to go and try it. That's the thing, is that I'm going by the little bit I've seen on BGG and elsewhere. I maybe shouldn't make too many assumptions about how
Mm,
it's gonna play, or I might be disappointed. But it looks cool, and I'd love to give this one a go. So I'm going to try and find them early on and see if we can get a demo from them.
yeah. Um, it it looks very. I've just had a look. It does look very pretty, doesn't it?
Yeah, Yeah, yeah. And
Um, so then for me, um, is Luthier,
yeah, okay.
um, which looks very interesting. Um,
This is from what are they called? Who are the guys who created
Dave Beck did Distilled,
Distilled? That's the game that I'm trying to
um,
think the name of.
and it looks very similar in terms of board layout and stuff. Um, as you know, I'm kind of into my woodworking, and I've always fancied making some sort of instrument. I play bass guitar, so a making of a bass guitar has been on my sort of background to-do list for a while.
That would be very cool.
Um, so uh, I've got a I've got a big, just to bore you, I've got a big lump of ash that's well seasoned sitting in my shed,
That's the one, is it?
earmarked for the body of my guitar already.
Nice.
Um,
That's
so
quite
so
nice. This
something like this
is
appeals.
that's I like that. It's waiting for the moment. Well, this board could inspire you, right? 'Cause it's all about making musical instruments uh, um, and that, isn't it? So this still is a game I really liked. It's actually gone onto my wish list because I'd like to own it myself. I thought it was a really fun game to play and had quite a broad appeal to it as well. So yeah, this should be good. And again, they were just demoing that last year, I think, weren't they? But it was very very rammed, and we had very limited time. So yeah, that would be a cool one to go and do. Next one for me is Lord of the Rings Fate or Fate of, not the Fate of, Fate of the Fellowship. This is hype central, this one. It is Lord of the Rings Pandemic, essentially, which I love. Pandemic is it was such a foundational game for me in bringing me back into the hobby in pre-COVID kind of times of starting to explore what's available again, this new age of board games. And I've knocked around several editions of different pandemics trying to find something that I like the feel of. And I hope this works. I really hope it does. I've kind of settled on the Fall of Rome one at the moment as my pandemic of choice, and it's pretty good. It's not one I tend to be able to engage other people with very much. Um, it's just maybe it's just not the theme that people like. But yeah, this could be the one, and it's uh, uh, Z-Man Games, Z-Man Games, whatever you prefer. But I think it will be available in part of the Big Asmodee um, section that's always in UK Games Expo. I'm sure this is going to be a tricky one to get a game of, but also it being Asmodee, I'm sure they'll have loads of them available to be playing. They'll have a lot of them out there, like they've done with some of the Star Wars and other stuff in previous years. So I believe it will be part of uh, their section of the expo. And my hope above hopes is it's not just a pasted on theme. It's interesting at the moment. There's a real resurgence of Lord of the Rings stuff coming back through, isn't there? I'm not sure why that should be particularly. Maybe it's just we who grew up when the Lord of the Rings films came out in the you know 2000s to I think the last one came out 2003, I think. That was, those films coming out, that was a big part of our later teenage years, right? I mean, you're much
Yeah.
older than me, so you're probably that was your early 30s. So early 20s. Anyway, it there were massive films that everybody loved, right? And so I
Yeah.
think maybe it's just that's coming through as those people of our generation and other people creating board games. So maybe this is the reason why. So anyway, love to give that one a go. All right. Anyway, that's that one. Let's move on from that quickly. What's your next thing? You got any others you're
So I'm
keen on?
going with Survival of the Fattest.
Is that just
Have
your
you?
your philosophy during the expo weekend?
Yeah, it really is. So this is about woodland folk trying to
I've
get
seen
enough
this. Yes.
nourishment to see them through winter. It looks fun. Does look fun.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I like the woodland theme. I like the artwork. I don't know if it would necessarily hold up into. I'm kind of on the fence that way. Um, so I'd like to give that a go.
This also looks like one of those games which is so much a part of what we need to do at UKG is not just go hunting around for the big stuff. Is just have a wander around. This person will probably, assuming they're themselves doing it, have a little stand, be demoing it, trying to bring people in to have a go. You know, you've got to make sure you do that at the same time. But yeah,
Yeah.
I saw this one, and it's sort of on my yes, definitely have a look list. Next one for me, not a new game, this, but I've kind of been chasing it around and umming and ahhing about buying it for ages. So I'd kind of like to take the opportunity because I think Czech Games Edition will have it available as it's gone down so well. Is SETI, Search for
Yes, that
Extraterrestrial
looks really good.
Intelligence. It just looks cool, right? And I've had a reasonably good experience with Czech Games Edition. God, they need to get a new name for that, don't they? CGE Games. Uh, in the past and seems to be well reviewed. So yeah, I'd love to give this a go and maybe pick up a copy as well if there's one available at a good price. It looks really cool. And they usually have a pretty good spread of things that they're demoing. Any more for you?
Well, it was something you like largely more generally touched on is just seeing some of the independent publishers
Hmm.
who are there with their first game or whatever it is, because they're usually really good and they've not necessarily had the publicity, so you've not seen it advertised anywhere or not necessarily seen it advertised anywhere. So I'm looking forward just to kind of finding that odd niche. Um, yeah, that odd niche game designer and having a look at what they've got.
Yeah. And I think I've been a bit guilty in the past of those avenues of smaller sellers up and down that there's a lot of, can I call it board game tat?
Yes, there is a lot of that.
There's a lot of that, and that will be interspersed often with someone trying to demo their games, which I think always doesn't always do that person a favor. I understand why they're doing it completely from a commercial point of view, but it doesn't always do that game designer a lot of favors if anybody thinks like me and just go, oh, God, I can't be bothered to buy a little meeple that says Tom on it or something. That's just not really my thing. And all sorts of other bits and pieces. And so I sometimes will skirt through those quicker than I should and miss some stuff. I know I've missed stuff in the past because I've just gone through it going, no, not interested. Don't catch that person's eye. Don't want to talk about their tie-dyed uh, dice or whatever. So just I'm going to try and not do that this year and buy all the extra little bits of nonsense that I need to. We've got time. We've got the time this year. We've got the time.
So fingers
Couple
crossed.
more on my list are Vanguard Normandy, which is a game that I was close to backing on Kickstarter from Warlord Games. This is them venturing into the board game. They're much more of a tabletop historical war game company, really. Um, but then venturing into the board game in something that looks really quite like a more sophisticated version of Memoir 44.
Yeah,
Very interested in this. I hope that they will have a place to be able to demo this. They're in Hall 3A, stand 554. I remember last year, could have been, yeah, last year, maybe 2 years ago, we talked to them and they had a very small stand with just lots of miniatures that they were selling. at that point, just at the bottom of the stairs in that hall, whichever one that one is. And I'm hoping they've got much more going on at this point. So give that a go. Very keen to see what that's like. And I'll just follow on because I've got another one that's very related, I think, on Osprey Games. We talked about them earlier, hoping that they are going to go quite heavy on the Line of Fire Burnt Moon game, which is this game that's in the Callisto Undaunted Callisto
Yeah.
universe that David Thompson spoke to us about. Listen to the episode before Christmas, listener. That was a fantastic chat we had with David Thompson. Thank you, David. But his latest game in that universe, call it, of Undaunted Callisto, but very different sort of game. He related it to an old, I think it's a Reiner Knizia game called Battle Line, where it's how to describe it better than battle line, the name is that you have a line of cards that you line up against your enemy and you sort of, it's a card battler. And I put my hand up. I've been on this podcast and ranted more than I should have done about other card battlers that I won't name. So they're not really my thing, but this has just really caught my interest, partly because I haven't ever played a bad David Thompson game. I'm interested in that world, and it's Osprey, so it'll be produced beautifully as well. So I really do want to try and have that go. So do two back to back there, but they felt relatable. Osprey, who usually have a good spread, are at stand 448 in Hall 3A this year. Any others for you, Paul, that you're, or any kind of
Oh,
publishers that you're kind of looking
right.
out for?
Well, is the family zone area.
Yeah.
Um, so every year they have this kind of area for you to bring your kids. I'm not bringing my kids, but they've got those family-friendly games, and someone with a young family and friends with young kids, I think it's always good to go and just have a. There's nothing specific, but just be keen to go and have a look and see what's there.
So yeah, and at Habba usually have a good
Yeah.
uh, selection there, and I know that would be very popular. And
Although haven't they gone bust?
Habba's gone bust. No, I didn't see that. We need to start doing board game news on this podcast.
Board game news. So in 2024, Habba went bust.
No way. Oh, that's such a shame.
Yeah.
Okay, so no, they went into administration but have exited. So they've kind of
Okay,
done
that's all
done
right. They're
a
safe.
they're safe. They've unfortunately for a lot of people working there, they would have done some sort of restructuring and probably made a load of people redundant. But it looks like they still exist in some capacity from a 2 second Google. So fingers crossed. They do some great stuff, beautifully made. They feel like proper German,
Yeah, those
wooden toys. Those.
they feel premium, don't they?
It'd be such a shame if they're not around, but fingers crossed
They're
they're
not. They're
still.
not at the expo.
They're not at the expo. Okay. Well, we'll see what's taking their place in the family area then, right? And this is a side, like this will be something that maybe we'll report on back afterwards. Is that there's a lot going on in the board game industry. We spoke about it with Molinarius Games and the tariffs and so on. It will be. I think it's probably too soon to have seen any, I think, major impacts, but who knows? Who knows? It's something to be aware of when we're going there, is that there's been a lot of pressure for all sorts of reasons, but most recently the US tariffs that have sort of not been there, got worse,
Yeah,
and then apparently got better for 90 days. But we'll see what happens. So, yeah. Yeah. There's a whole load of games on my list. I won't reel them all off, but there's some really good extra things that I created. There's a fantastic list. If you are listening to this in time, or maybe you're listening to this on the Friday or something, and you're going to go on the Saturday, Sunday to the expo, fantastic list that people have created on Board Game Geek of all the games that are going to be there. It's actually on the UK Games Expo page as well, but this person on BGG has obviously linked it to all the games so you can see a bit more about them. I just found it very simply doing UKGE 2025 games and followed a VGG link and found that. but call out just a couple. Um, there's something called Kelp Shark versus Octopus that sounds quite funny. There's Operation Barkley, which is from I think it's Two Tomatoes Games, um, and what you already mentioned, Time Troopers was on that list as well. I'm also keen we just bump into our mate and first interview we ever did, I think, right? Alan Paul. See if he doesn't remember us for the
Yeah,
second year running.
yeah. Even though
Uh,
I've got all of his games,
Had him on the podcast,
yeah.
championing his games. Never mind, Alan.
Always chat with his wife Charlie when she's there as
Yeah,
well.
do remember us, Alan. We love you.
Uh,
What else you got on your list, Paul?
so kind of then the other sort of final one from me is I haven't decided yet, but I will probably enter a tournament of some description.
Right, yeah, big part of the expo.
Yeah. There's loads of different tournaments. I entered a Dominion one on our first year a couple of years ago. And I very much came middle of the table, which was fine by me. Um, yeah, I don't know. I haven't quite decided yet. There's a Blood Bowl Sevens tournament, and there's a Seven Wonders duel tournament.
Oh, okay.
So I won't do both, but I will enter a tournament with the number seven.
Yeah,
Uh,
cool. I'm really keen if you do the Blood Bowl one. That's one I'd just love to come and watch for a little bit, just see what's going on.
I'll be bringing my pink orc team, my porks,
Your porks, nice,
yeah,
nice.
um, who have successfully led me to defeat in every tournament I've entered them with. So,
Can't keep happening, right? I mean, they got to win eventually.
uh,
Any
I,
tips for buying stuff that we can suggest? Like when we're looking around, you said right at the top of this section that it's easy to get carried away, right? And just go like, oh wow, must buy. There's another shop, there's another shop, there's another shop. Is it the right thing to do? Can you get good prices at the expo, or is it just worth building a shopping list that you then go back and buy later on Chaos Cards?
I don't think there is always the deals to be. There are sometimes deals, but not everyone has deals.
Mm.
Sometimes they're very much the price, that they are at retail shops. Um, but you get it there and then. So there is that instant
Yeah,
gratification.
save on delivery, right?
Yep. And probably better for the environment rather than shipping stuff very minorly, but every little bit counts, right? But now if you see something nice and pretty, just
Just
buy
get
it.
it, just get it.
Give in, give in to your urges. What I would say is actually it's very easy to spend a lot of.
Mm.
So I think my advice, much like going into a casino, is is have your limit and stick to it, right?
Absolutely. Have your limit. And the thing that I try and do is have a kind of vague sense in your head about what that game costs normally.
Yeah,
And so if you are there and you see the game is 40 quid and it's usually 50 quid, sure. But if it's there and it's 40 quid and it's usually like somewhere between 38 and 42 or something, depending on your retailer, then what's the point? It's just
yeah,
not you don't have to do it. But also I think I would say on the other side of the coin, shop around a bit, is that
yeah,
there are 10, 20 that you will have heard of, perhaps in the big ones from the massive Zatus to the brilliant Chaos cards. They kind of go. they that there are some really big ones there and things to go and see. Um, I think stuff does go. That's my has been my experience previously. So if it looks like a good price as well, feels like the most mixed advice plate of advice you've ever seen in your life. But if you see a good price, kind of, yes, sure, have a look around and see what's available, but also go for it. I've missed out on games that I thought, oh, that was a good price. They've got it up on the shelf saying that this is like a promotional price or something.
Yeah.
People snap it up. It's so busy. You probably, if you see a decent price, you've got a sense that it's the right one for you, then it's worth just going for.
Other big tip, take some snacks.
Snacks, just like I said last episode about Salute, water, shoes, comfortable shoes, deodorant. For the love of God, please take some deodorant with you, and maybe some Imodium if you get to Sunday, because those toilets are just not nice. So on that lovely note, there you have it. That is the UK Games Expo 2025 hype train accelerating, and we are very happy to be on board that tenuous metaphor. If you see us at Expo, please don't be shy. Say hello. We'd love to see you there. That was it. That was our 77th episode. We are racing towards both our third birthday and episode 100. I think there are enough weeks in the year, if I'm right in saying, to get us to that point by the time, to see how many we can be bothered to do, I guess. So thank
Let's
you.
stop at 99.
No, that's it. Done. Thank you very much for listening. Whether you're trying us out for the first time or you've been around here for a little while now, we really do appreciate you. We'll be back for more after the expo. So until then, please give us a follow, a subscribe, or a review, whatever you can, and perhaps try having a one to your gaming. Bye.
Right. I'm having my one. Might have my voice back by then.